Now, of course, there is a ray of sunshine. This was in the paper here in the UK. The austerity sandwich. It turns out there's a recipe from 1861. 2 slices of bread surrounding a slice of toast. Scientists in the UK say it's by far the cheapest lunch. The toast is spread with butter, salt, and pepper and wedged between 2 pieces of bread. It's the most economic lunch we've ever seen in 150 years. Once again, these austerity measures are completely unnecessary. They were the result of complete flagrancy and corruption in the banking sector. When is this government going to arrest some of these fucking guys? You know, in Iceland, we were in Iceland doing a film in Reykjavik on the collapse of the Icelandic economy, the Icelandic krona. We were there a year before it collapsed. We told them point blank, you know, this whole thing's going to blow up in a year. Sure enough, it blows up. There's an Interpol warrant out for the arrest of Schwing, Schwang, Finch, and Deutscher. Ein Schwatten Deutscher. For fraud, but guess where they are hiding out? Guess where they're, who's giving them safe harbor? London! Or Chelsea! We're hanging out with Abramovich! So this place, this London, this city of London is really the global capital of fraud and hedge fund activity. You know, the Bernie Madoff scandal come right through London. Nobody cared about that. You know, there's a joke Woody Allen used to tell. He said, he goes to his brother, he goes to the doctor and says, "Doctor, my brother thinks he's a chicken." Doctor says, "Here, give him these pills." He says, "You don't understand, we need the eggs." This is the UK economy. If we took fraud out of the system, you've got nothing but toast sandwiches. And I direct your attention to this editorial in the Wall Street Journal from July 21st of 2005. This was an editorial. It said, "Lessons from the brain-damaged investor." This editorial discusses that people with slight brain damage make better money managers and better stockbrokers. Why is that? Because they lack empathy. They have no empathy. They have no thought as to what the consequences of their actions might be. As a result, that industry that has attracted, and it's getting worse and worse, more brain-damaged people. People without any empathy whatsoever. There's no consideration for the consequences of their actions, and they engage in these massive global frauds on an epic scale, using free money, priced at zero, with 0% interest rates, thanks to shysters like Mervyn King and Ben Bernanke, who artificially keep rates at zero to feed psychotic, brain-damaged speculators. And then, to top it off, every time they make a mistake, they bail them out. They bail them out. Now, this is continuing. Okay, the Northern Rock bailout with this thing with Richard Branson. I just think that's another example of this thing continuing. There's nothing, no stand up to the there's no regulation whatsoever. There's no regulatory authority whatsoever. MF Global in the United States, been in business for over 200 years. John Corzine, former Goldman Sachs CEO, former governor of New Jersey, former senator, rising in town. Within 2 years, he's extended the company's debt to equity to 50-to-1. It blows up, he pockets millions, and now the whole thing is jeopardizing the entire stability of the system, because what we find out is that the customers who had money in allocated customer accounts at MF Global are being told that they do not have access to that money. That is not their money. That money is now in the hands of the corporation, and you can go factor settle. Now that's basically totally destroyed the underlying trust of the entire banking and brokering industry. Even when I was working as a stockbroker, I wouldn't do that shit. I've done some sick shit as a stockbroker, but I wouldn't do that sick shit. You know, that's commingling. You know, when you get your stockbroker's license, you have to study the Securities Act of 1933, 1934. And there's a one big thing if you don't understand by the time you get your license, you got to know is that you don't commingle accounts. You don't take the customer accounts and mix them with your money. That's the customer money. You can try to churn the customer to death. You can do unauthorized trading. You can do all kinds of shit. But you can't outright go into their account and write yourself a check. But that's what John Corzine did. Former Goldman Sachs, former governor, former senator. And they're debating, well, what do we do about this? I say shoot that fucker! Coming here as well, the wonks and the technocrats and the bankers, and they call technocrats, it's just a way of avoiding saying banker. That was quick, wasn't it? Oh, the technocrats in Italy and in Greece, they're not technocrats, they're fucking bankers. They're all tied in with Goldman Sachs. They all have a history with Goldman Sachs. They all deal with the central banks. They all deal with the IMF. They're all doing the exact same shit. The European Financial Security Fund is just a $5 trillion slush fund that they're going to try to roll a lot of shit debt into a new piece of shit. And they're going to extend that out for another 20 years and to pay the interest and they'll impose more austerity measures. And it's only going to get worse. It's not going to get better. There are no solutions that they're putting forward. That's not sustainable in any sense of the word. It's complete financial fraud. And this is being played out all over the world. And of course you see a reaction. You see a reaction in these Occupy movements, Occupy Wall Street, Occupy London Stock Exchange, Occupy this, Occupy that. And there's a global insurrection against these banking occupying forces. And it's getting stronger. And it's getting more animated. And this is only going in one direction because they don't have any solution that makes any sense. And the only solution that makes any sense is you've got to basically write these debts down to what they're worth, which is zero. There's got to be a write-down of these debts. That means these banks have got to be crushed. You don't force a taxpayer to take a £500 million loss from their Virgin Rock that they were promised they were going to make money on, give it a gift to Richard Branson because he's got blonde hair and shiny teeth, and say, well, you know how to build a brand. This must work for you. Have at it. Okay? In 3 or 4 years, he's going to take it public, pocket $1 billion or so euros down in Necker, and having frickin' that star from Titanic put out forest fires again. So I looked it up on Wikipedia. And it turns out that, in fact, the Scottish pounds, they are not accepted here in England, and unless both parties agree to that exchange. You need both parties have to agree to it. You see, that's a currency. It's only valuable if both parties agree to it. If he could have said, yes, I accept your £5, and we could have transacted, and that's a currency. But it's not money. You see, if this was gold or silver, we wouldn't be having that debate. Okay, because it's had purchasing power for 5,000 years. Nobody debates real gold, real silver, that it's really money. And it has held purchasing power over the test of time. But this is currency. But this is the problem with all fiat money. All fiat money in the world, since the beginning of money in history, the average lifespan is about 47 years, and every single one has had the end result being a valuation to zero. 100%. They've all gone to zero. The euro's going to zero. The dollar's going to zero. This is going to zero. And it's all happening right now, and of course the only way to break out of this will be to reconfigure the global economy. They did it at Bretton Woods, and they're going to have to do it against gold, and the price of gold is going to have to be revalued at a much higher price. There's only 160,000 tons of gold in the world that fills 2 Olympic-sized swimming pools, or it's a cubic tennis court of gold, that's it. And at the current valuations, given the $600 trillion of derivatives, you discount for Civil War, riots, poll tax riots, a little this, a little that, and you end up with, you got to clear this shit out at upwards of $7,000, $8,000 an ounce. $7,000, $8,000 an ounce, my friend. Okay, and you do, I figure silver is going to be trading at a 20-to-1, ratio to that, and you understand why central banks, according to this headline, central banks are now the biggest gold rush in 40 years. Central banks are now aggressively buying gold. They're doing the opposite of what Gordon Brown thought you should do. They're now aggressively buying gold. Russia's buying gold every month. China's buying gold. India buying gold. Because they all realize that this is all going to end up with gold and silver, and how that's going to be revalued. And so this is what's happening. And this is what I don't think there's enough communication about this, because especially in the UK, there's this notion that by continuing the status quo, that there's going to be austerity measures, there's going to be a policy adjustment, there's going to be a committee meeting, there's going to be some political solution. But unless you get rid of the fraud, you're not going to get anywhere with this. And you're not getting rid of the debt, you're not going to get anywhere with this. You know, somebody asked me before, they said, is this inflation or deflation? Is it stagflation? Is it biflation? That's you're asking a macroeconomic question for a theft. You know, if somebody steals your wallet, you say, well, gee, is that inflation?